When it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind-A-Wai with John Pollock and Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind-A-Wai for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind-A-Wai for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
And welcome, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy brand new week here over in the Post Wrestling universe. My name is Wai Ting. I am leading the show off this week because we have John Pollock enjoying a much-deserved family trip over to Niagara Falls, so we hope he's having a great time. And in his place, it is the GOAT. You can call him the double underscore. You can call him the youngest in charge. You can even call him Scoops. Andrew Thompson, welcome to the show.
My man, Wai Ting. It's always a pleasure talking to you, my guy. I always love being on camera with you. Love talking to you. What's going on, man? How you feeling? How you feeling this Monday, Wai?
I feel fantastic. It's lovely. It's lovely to get to. I don't know, like when the last time it was that you and I might have done like a wrestling review together, or even any sort of podcast together. But
I think it was when you and John were still doing the daily news updates. I think that was the last. What was that, like summer 2022?
I think that's forever ago at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't remember anything before my kid was born. So that was like a whole lifetime ago. But I especially appreciate this opportunity because I know, Andrew, you've done a lot of podcasting over the past 24 hours. I am at this point a third of the way through of the latest edition of the NWA podcast, clocking in at a very breezy 3.5 hours. But I guarantee you, as I always do, I will finish this thing at some point because your guys' conversation is just that compelling.
Man, Nate and Chris, they are, and Ray too. Ray, who joined us on the podcast, very, very, very enjoyable conversation. I would highly recommend. Like, there's a lot of serious discussions we had. I definitely want to touch on that. We talked about the MJF Juice Robinson promo. We talked about that whole ordeal and how that turned out. And Chris has some great insight to it. And we also had a debate about which night of WrestleMania means the most. And me and Chris got into a little thing, and then I had Ray chime in, and it was like the old guard versus the new guard. It was like me and Ray going against Nate and Chris. It was a great time, man. I hope people take the time to listen to it and enjoy the show.
So it's right now out on the free feed and also out on our YouTube with Chris, Nate, Andrew, and Ray. It's sort of like Netflix dropping like a whole season at once. You can work your way through it, or you could binge it all in one go. The NWA podcast, always enjoyable. Also want to give a shout out to on the site over the past weekend. We had Collision Course drop with Kate and Siino talking about the latest edition of AEW Collision. We have a New Japan Royal Quest 3 review with Bruce and Karen talking about Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay, one of the notable matches coming out of the weekend. Also, the return of season 2 of Loki with MCU Later, talking about episode 2 with Rich Fan, WH Park, and Scrum from PWT Cast joining us as well. And then also a free edition of Rewind-A-SmackDown with me and John, and a lot of great calls from Friday as well that you can find actually on the free feed right now. But Andrew, thank you so much, not just for your contributions to the NWA podcast, but for a lot of the great writing you do over at postwrestling.com. Would you care to maybe go through some of the week's top stories, or the weekend's top stories, I should say?
It was a lot of good things that happened, or a lot of crazy things that happened. I know some of the topics you had sent me over. I know one of them was listed about the SmackDown and AEW Rampage ratings that came out. You want to introduce that? I don't have the room right now.
Let's do it. Let's start things off talking about the weekend's ratings, or I should say Friday's ratings, starting with SmackDown ratings. This past Friday's SmackDown, led by the return of Roman Reigns, drew an average of 2,417,000, which is up from 2,319,000 of the previous week. It saw a slight dip in the 18 to 49 demo, with a 0.62 down from a 0.64 the week prior, courtesy of WrestleNomics, of course. AEW Rampage also enjoyed a boost courtesy of an NBA preseason exhibition game leading in on TNT, drawing an average viewership of 407,000, up from 365,000 the last week. It was the show's highest viewership since August the 18th. Rampage also enjoyed an increase in the 18 to 49 demo, up 16.7% to 0.14 from 0.12. Again, this data courtesy of WrestleNomics. Did you watch either show, Andrew, and did you have any thoughts at all on maybe some of these results?
Yeah, I could definitely call SmackDown the season premiere of the show. I thought that was like a really, really solid presentation. Like overall, SmackDown was very, very good. And just real quick, where you talked about the news, that definitely want to give a shout out to that man, Neal Flanagan, who actually is helping me out tonight, so I could come do around Raw. Neal took over the news on the site. Definitely big shout out to Neal, who did a great transcription during that Rey Mysterio Ariel Helwani interview too. So go shout out to that man, Neal.
We will talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, I checked out SmackDown. I thought it was a real solid show, solid presentation overall, and of course the big news coming out of it. You got the Jade Cargill and Charlotte Flair stare down, and of course Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes stare down as well. And I think that actually played into I have an opinion about how that played into tonight's main event as well. So yeah, that definitely
a lot of people staring each other down.
Yeah, a lot of stare downs. Yeah.
Yes. Well, let's talk a little bit about Kofi Kingston and what's going on with him, because not much to talk about Kofi on this edition of Raw, but there was a lot going on with Kofi otherwise throughout this weekend. As over the past weekend, the Kofi Kingston Library and Digital Center officially opened this Friday in the Kwadaso municipality in the Ashanti region of Ghana. The center is a product of a nonprofit named CLICK, which stands for Computer Lab and Integrated Center of Knowledge. What a great acronym. That's up there with like SHIELD, which is co-founded by Kofi and his mother, with an aim to establish quality computer labs and integrated centers of learning for junior high schools in Ghana. About the effort, Kingston said in January, there are some kids who have never seen a computer, who have never been to a library up until the age of high school. I think when you get into a position of celebrity, we have a social responsibility to positively impact the world, and I can't think of a better way to do that than giving kids the opportunity to succeed. A video of the opening can be found on Kofi Kingston's social media channels at True Kofi, and one also aired tonight on Raw.
Yeah, that's something real great. Man. Kofi's just the man, and I'm really glad that they aired that on Monday Night Raw to just further publicize what he did. Like, that's a great thing that he's doing, man. And of course, him and his mom. Kofi's just the best, man. I don't know what else you can say about Kofi. Kofi's the best, man. I'm always happy to see him get his recognition. Of course, always he's helping others as well. Shout out to Kofi.
I mean, not only a tenured veteran, but somebody who has consistently delivered quality in all of his performances. So
yes,
I
would say, have you sseen like the recent streak of matches he's had lately? Like Kofi been putting on some real stuff. Yeah. Kofi been putting on some real great performances lately, man. Especially the one he had with Alvar. I thought that was really great. So yeah, man, shout out to Kofi, man. In and out of the ring, overall great guy. Look at him.
I mean, it's stories like these, and it's just, I think, the general sort of reputation he seems to have among the locker room, and again, the consistent level of quality that makes something like a Kofi Mania possible any single year, that the audiences get a sense that they could possibly be serious about pushing Kofi Kingston. So at some point we might get Kofi Mania too. I just know the audience will be ready for it if they ever decide to execute.
I definitely do hope at one point we do get a Kofi Seth Rollins world title match. At some point, I hope that happens down the line, because I think they could tell a real good story with Kofi. And of course, with how his last title reign ended. We're not even gonna get into that because that's a whole thing that still bothers me to this day, Ting. But yeah,
it's a great point, Andrew, because I mean, Roman currently with the championship, I really feel like that position is only reserved right now for two people, and that's either Cody Rhodes or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And if you're either of those two, you're not either of those two, then your title sort of aspirations are pretty much like nothing. But the Seth Rollins championship really does present opportunities for other people to have like a semblance of a main event, as we will talk about maybe later with Sami Zayn. Let's talk a little bit about somebody that you've interviewed on many occasions, Andrew Thompson, Chris Hero.
Hey.
Who over the weekend has announced his return match for West Coast Pro. Chris Hero is set to make his return against Timothy Thatcher. At the conclusion of West Coast Pro's 5-year anniversary show on Saturday, Hero, who is the promotion's matchmaker, came out to stop Thatcher from a post-match attack on JT Thorne. Thatcher would later attack Hero from behind, leading Hero to challenge him to a match for West Coast Pro's Whiplash event on November the 17th. Hero has not wrestled in a sanctioned match since March 2020 when he was a part of NXT UK. Any thoughts about this?
Man, so I had saw this. I first saw it on Twitter because I was upcoming, like getting some news under the site, and I had saw the clip on Twitter. I had saw a tweet. Somebody was like, "Chris Hero coming back on the November 17th. I was like, get out of here, man. He ain't coming. So I pulled up the West Coast Pro Stream. They streamed it live on their YouTube channel, and you could just rewind it back, and I went and watched the whole thing and how it played out. And I'm excited for him, man. I think he officially put the graphic up today, him and Thatcher. So I think that's gonna be a real great match. I'm excited to see what Chris Hero does. The first match in 3 years, almost 4 years. Crazy, man. So I'm excited to see what he does. I know a lot of people are like either just seeing the reaction from people like that late at night to him coming back to the ring. You could tell there's a lot of intrigue, man. And I think he picked a great opponent for his first match back, Timothy Thatcher.
Oh, certainly. And it's West Coast Pro streams on YouTube.
So I think that specific show aired for free on their YouTube channel. I know they have some of their shows get uploaded to IWTV, like I think afterwards, but I haven't I think the last time I watched the West Coast Pro stream live, it did air on IWTV live, but I think they just switch it up every once in a while. But yeah, that specific show aired on YouTube.
Okay, well, it certainly will get a lot of publicity for that promotion with Chris Hero making his return. So we'll hear about that, I'm sure, in the weeks to come. Up next, let's go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. Let's talk about Jon Moxley's return to Japan. At the conclusion of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Royal Quest 3 event in London, which of course was reviewed by Bruce and Karen out in the Café, Shota Umino came out to challenge UK champion Will Ospreay to a match, and Ospreay said, "All right, but only if you can get your friend Jon Moxley to have a match against the Great O-Khan." So both of those matches have been made official for Power Struggle in Osaka on November the 4th. Will Ospreay versus Shota Umino for the UK Championship. Jon Moxley versus the Great O-Khan. Also on the show, Hiromu Takahashi defends the junior heavyweight title against Taiji Ishimori. The never six-man champions, Kazuchika Okada, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Tomohiro Ishii defend against TMDK. Sanada and Yuya Uemura. A bit of a preview of Wrestle Kingdom's main event as those two take on Tetsuya Naito and Yota Tsuji, as well as the finals of the Super Junior Tag League. Any thoughts on any of those matches?
Yeah, I'm about to say the Super Junior Tag League, I think it starts next week, I believe, coming up the 21st. The Super Junior Tag League starts on the 21st. So that Power Struggle card looking kind of nice way. I'm excited for the upcoming Power Struggle card. And of course, Jon Moxley making his return to Japan. That's always going to draw a bunch of interest. I am kind of curious about the amount of the intrigue that people have for Naito versus Sanada. I'm always curious about how the Japanese audience their intrigue versus how that intrigue is here in the States. It's always interesting, or just overseas in general. I'm always interested to see the contrast between those two things, because I see a lot of people just tweets and stuff. They're like, there's intrigue there, but it doesn't seem like the hype for a Wrestle Kingdom main event. But I mean, we still have 2 months to go. So I mean, they got enough time to tell the story is already existing between those two, but I'm just saying, as far as the intrigue that I saw, it doesn't seem like it's that much hype for that particular IWGP World Title main event.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak as somebody who, at this point, is very much a casual New Japan Pro Wrestling fan. I'll tune in for matches like Ospreay versus Zack, and matches that get buzz, but I have not heard much buzz about Sanada throughout this title run. So it's not exactly all the buzz I've heard has been about his faction changing names. That's been the most I've heard about Sanada during this time. And I mean, watching him through the G1, I haven't really been that impressed either. So they're gonna have to do a lot of storytelling and maybe to hook a fan like me back in. But Wrestle Kingdom always, it's not really just hinged on really one main event anymore. In years past, they've had one main event maybe for a Japanese audience and then another for the international audience, and they certainly have a lot of other players to choose from. You can expect maybe a Moxley might make a return. Bryan Danielson and Okada or Danielson versus Zack at this point might also be a possibility as well.
That's why I like
Ospreay
doing
Omega, of course.
That's why I like doing podcasts with you, because you say things and you bring things to my mind and you make me think of it. So look, this is pure speculation by me, right? But Brandon Cutler and Colt Cabana, well, it's not really Colt Cabana, but Brandon Cutler is going to be at the GLEAT show in Japan on December 30th. And a part of me thinks that Brandon Cutler being in Japan makes me think that the Young Bucks are going to be in Japan. I don't know. I just have this feeling. I think the Young Bucks might make their return to New Japan for a Wrestle Kingdom. And that's just pure speculation by me. But I know that those three, they're always together. And seeing as how Brandon's going to be in Japan, I'm assuming he's going to be filming something for Being the Elite, possibly. So I would assume that the Young Bucks are going to be in Japan as well and making their return for Wrestle Kingdom.
If fat ass Masa shows up on BTE, maybe there's smoke to that fire. Very interesting. Well, you heard the prediction from Andrew Thompson. We will see if that comes true. Lastly, I feel like I have some obligation to report this because this person does have ties to professional wrestling, and this does lead directly into SmackDown on Friday. But Logan Paul versus Dillon Danis took place this past weekend. Did you catch the fight?
I saw a lot of clips, and I saw the one when it all broke down, and like everybody was in the ring. That's all I saw. I didn't see the fight. People said it was trash though.
Yeah, DAZN uploaded like a 10-minute recap of the fight highlights, and I use that term very loosely because this was not much of a fight. It was really Logan Paul dominating for 6 rounds, while Dillon Danis did this like for most of it. Maybe some of the I guess social media buzzworthy moments were when Dillon Danis at one point dropped to open his guard for Logan to come into. He also shot for a double leg takedown. And then the end of the fight, after the 6 rounds, towards the end of the 6 rounds, I should say, Dillon Danis went for a guillotine choke, leading to Logan Paul punch him on the ground, and then leading to a big melee involving every security guard and cornerman from the ringside area stepping in. This resulted in a DQ loss for Dillon Danis. And afterwards, Logan Paul got on the microphone and called out Rey Mysterio and his U.S. championship. And Rey Mysterio was on the MMA Hour today, where he confirmed that Logan Paul will be on SmackDown this Friday for a confrontation. So, did you have any thoughts? Maybe I'm assuming you're a younger person. I'm sure you caught wind of the build towards this whole thing. How did you feel about I don't know, any of this bullshit?
I mean, it didn't really like gauge my interest that much. I mean, I don't really like. I know that there was like some real life stuff tied into it involving like Logan Paul's wife or something like that. Involved, like they leaked some video or something like that. I think his fiance, and I think it was some legal matters involved with that because he leaked. It was like a whole thing about that. But I mean, it's the social media influence of boxing stuff. It's the new wave, man, and it's in now. But as far as Logan Paul and Rey Mysterio, I would not be surprised if he beats Rey for the title at Crown Jewel. If that's what the match taking place, I genuinely would not be surprised.
Does Rey take from the Dillon Danis playbook of building up a fight? I wonder.
I wonder what Rey's going to do too. I think Rey's a little too white meat baby face to go that route. But
how's Rey's social media game? Does he have like the pictures? Does he have
the last like anything remotely towards that way that Rey posted was back in 2013 when he remember he was promoting a WWE video game and he was like, I can't wait to whoop my son ass. Have you ever seen that tweet? Yeah.
Yes, I have. I mean, okay, maybe all jokes aside, I mean, I'd love to know what sort of like the metrics are for a buy rate for this sort of pay-per-view, because I did see it get a lot of buzz in the build up to it. Whether or not that equated to people actually purchasing the pay-per-view, I'm very curious to see, because if it did, you might get a lot more of this, like who cares about the end result of the fight? Let's just pick the person on social media that seems to get the most traction, for these sort of fights. So that's what the latest in the world of Logan Paul until this Friday, of course. Andrew Thompson, you watch a lot of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
You watch so much of it, and I have no idea how you do it without the use of a VPN. And I'm here to talk about NordVPN, of course, really the greatest invention and really the greatest support when it comes to consuming a whole lot of professional wrestling and doing it in a very safe way. Okay. NordVPN, quick thanks to our sponsors of the show, NordVPN. If you're like me and you work from home, you might occasionally change up the scenery by working at a coffee shop or a library. Do you ever leave the house to do your writing or research, Andrew?
For this specific conversation, I'll just say I have. Yes.
True team player. Thank you very much. Because Andrew, sometimes you might be at a coffee shop, you might be at a library. If you find yourself traveling, I'm sure you have used Wi-Fi at a hotel or even at the airport to conduct that very serious post-wrestling business. But whenever you are connected to public Wi-Fi, you're leaving your phone or computer susceptible to cyber attacks from hackers, making your browsing history, account logins, payment information, and even text messages vulnerable. A trusted VPN is a must whenever you're accessing public Wi-Fi, encrypting your traffic and hiding your IP address, making sure your data doesn't belong to anybody but yourself. NordVPN is one of the most established and reputable VPN providers in the field. Voted best VPN for privacy in 2023 by security.org with an editor's rating of 9.7 out of 10, stating in its review, NordVPN's encryption is beyond reproach. It offers military-grade encryption, aka 256-bit AES, the highest encryption standard there is. If I don't really know how to say it, then it must be really good. All of this plus premium security features like threat protection and double VPN, and the ability to access geo-block services like AEW Plus. A standard 2-year plan with Nord costs $3.08 a month when you sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling. You get 4 bonus months on top of all 2-year plans when you sign up using our code. So try it, get your money back within 30 days if you're not satisfied. Again, $3.08 a month when you sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Check the link in the description. Sign up with code postwrestling. Get yourself some bonus months and let Nord know that you found them through Post.
Look at that.
Thank you for playing along.
Looks like an amazing product.
He said it unprompted. It really is. Trust me. Okay, everybody. All right, just a few more notes here. We have coming out later this week over at the Post Wrestling Cafe. It is a Rewind-A-Wai with me and John Pollock talking about, Andrew, what is the best pay-per-view of all time? Okay.
The best pay-per-view of all time?
Ever.
The one you guys are reviewing this week.
Again, thank you for being a team player, because Andrew Thompson, John, and I are reviewing WrestleMania 17. All right.
That's actually not a bad guess. I just guessed, but like that's not half bad.
Yeah. Were you alive? Were you alive during this?
Yeah, what was that, 2001? Yeah.
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 Okay, I have to make sure sometimes.
I was
How old were you?
2001. I was born in 96, so I was like 5.
You're 5. Okay.
Yeah. 2001, yeah. But the best pay-per-view of all time to me, because it just resonates with my child, is the first episode of Bush being Thompson wrestling adventure, WrestleMania 19. That's my all-time favorite right there.
That's your favorite? All right. Yeah. Well, we'll rewind 2 years before that, and we're here to talk about WrestleMania 17. Austin versus Rock. TLC 2, we've got Undertaker versus Triple H, the gimmick battle royal. To this day, what many people consider to be at least the best WWE pay-per-view of all time, if not the best pay-per-view of all time. So get your feedback in at forum.postwrestling.com. Friday, John and I are back for Rewind-A-SmackDown, and then Saturday, I'll be co-hosting a free edition of Collision Course with Kate, because John Pollock and John Siino will be teaming up for a review of Impact's Bound for Glory, exclusively for all Café members. Sunday, Eric and Phil are back with the UFC 294 review, and then MCU later this weekend is a Café exclusive with WH Park and our man Neal stepping in for Rich Fan.
Shout out to Neal.
Okay. Let's talk about tonight's edition of WWE Raw. I'm curious, Andrew, you do a lot of coverage for all the wrestling on our site. Do you watch these shows live every day, or are you saving them maybe for later on? Like, what's your viewing process, especially for like a 3-hour show like Raw?
Yeah, I catch Raw live every Monday, and mostly because I'm covering it on the website. So yeah, I watch Raw pretty much mostly every like big show that happens during the week. I'm pretty much watching it live, and then if I don't, I just catch it like later. Like for when they did the head-to-head last week for NXT and AEW, I watched NXT first, and then I just go AEW like the next day.
But you don't even give yourself like buffer room?
Sometimes it just depends. Like maybe if I'm out or something like that, I just catch it when I get home, or like it gets uploaded to at the Xfinity service, so it just pops up. They upload it like right after, so I can catch it after that.
So my process is I always like leave myself buffer room. So I'll start it like half an hour a bit later, and then just so that I can zip through the commercials, zip through like the sort of entrances, because the main event, Andrew, Judgment Day walked out, and it was 15 minutes between their walkout and the start of this match. So there's a lot of that throughout these shows, especially when you're talking about 3 hours that you could just zip through.
I wonder what that's like for the in-arena audience. They just sitting there that long period of time, just watching video packages and commercials.
A lot of trips to, I guess, the concessions, I guess. So Raw came to us this week from the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City, where 7,283 tickets were distributed as of this afternoon, according to WrestleTix. This is up from 6,489 the last time they were here a year ago. And when you start things off, this is maybe a notable show because Michael Cole was not around. He was replaced by Kevin Patrick. PW Insider reported that Cole had requested this time off some time ago due to a personal commitment. So if you remember the promo from Seth Rollins not that long ago, this would make this one of Cole's rare days off, perhaps
It's third
in 26 years.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy right there. Hey, I want that. Wait, do you like Kevin Patrick?
He's inoffensive to me. I wouldn't necessarily say I like him, just much the same way I wouldn't have necessarily said I like Michael Cole like for most of those 26 years. I think now I do like Michael Cole. But Kevin Patrick to me is just sort of a like there. I don't dislike him, which might be a compliment in and of itself.
Let's say with Michael Cole, I think Pat McAfee did a lot for his career. Like I think Pat McAfee just like injected like a new career resurgence to that man. For like Kevin Patrick, I've always had this feeling like it's probably just me, but I've always felt that Kevin Patrick is like Triple H's placeholder from Tom Hannafan. Like if he could ever get Tom Hannafan back and reunite him with Corey Graves, his old NXT commentary team, I feel like that's what he would do. But like Kevin Patrick's like this filler that he has and he just use him. Or maybe they use Vic Joseph, but yeah, I see that a lot about Kevin Patrick. Like I even saw people they was talking about like he's more exciting when he calls he calls like his soccer games and he's like football games and he's like way more excited and people like ask like where's that energy for Monday Night Raw or SmackDown.
I imagine there's so much pressure to just like, fall in line, when you're doing something like this with so many ears like and so much public pressure on you at the same time, right? Where maybe a bit less pressure doing some of those other sports and maybe more confidence to be yourself. Who knows? But he stuck around for this long, so they must like something about him.
Yeah.
So Sami Zayn actually starts tonight's episode off, and he's out wearing a Kevin Owens t-shirt. He is here to talk about Kevin Owens straight to SmackDown, and he says he has mixed emotions. He says that he's sad about the end of his partnership with Owens, but he's excited for the both of them to do things big as single stars. Zayn says he's a world champion level star, so he's starting the push towards his world title campaign tonight. Points out the elephant in the room. He says the cause of Kevin Owens' trade is Jey Uso, so he's struggling with it. He says that the Judgment Day are getting a tag title shot tonight after they tormented Owens and Zayn through their run, so he's got a lot of things on his mind. Then out comes the Judgment Day, and they all make fun of Sami being alone. Priest is happy that Owens is gone. They're going to take care of Jey and Cody tonight. Priest says he wants to take Drew out as well, but Rhea again has to tell him to forget about Drew for now. So more on that later, of course. They're about to attack Zayn, but out comes Jey Uso with a chair, and they all chase Judgment Day away. Sami throws the chair down and leaves without Jey, just as a way to show his continued mixed emotions and possible resentment towards Jey as we head into the next segment. Now I'll talk about that before I get your thoughts, Andrew. Sami and Jey are backstage, and Jey confronts Sami. Sami says he needs space. Sami says Owens isn't there, and that's because of Jey. He says he should be a tag team champion, but he isn't, and he says that's also because of Jey. Jey says, I didn't know you felt like that, and so Jey leaves. Sami immediately says or shows that he's regretful and chases after Jey and says, I'm sorry. Jey says, yeet, and they're seemingly good again. So your thoughts on the opening segment as well as this little interaction between Sami and Jey?
So as far as Sami addressing that he is excited for himself because he could potentially become world champion. Like I see, this is what I like about the separate world title having, because I mean, like you had mentioned it earlier. There's like a very slim few names who you legitimately believe is going to end Roman Reigns' reign, and one of those names is Cody Rhodes. At this point, it seems like the only name is Cody Rhodes or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But with Seth, see, the thing is, Seth is built strong. But then at the same time, he's not like this like unbeatable force that Roman is presented as on television, where everybody's like kind of secluded away from him in terms of the believability category. Like Rollins, like even when he was feuding with Shinsuke and they were building the thing up about Schultz beating his back up and stuff like that, and really tearing him down. Like there was a part of me that thought maybe they might put the title on Shinsuke. There's a part of me that feel like maybe they might put the title on Drew, and that, I think that's just a good separate thing to have. And Sammy did this, like, with him being on Raw, I wouldn't rule it if they put the title on Sammy. But if it was the other way around, I would be like, it's no way he's beating Roman. And Sammy, man, like I had put this out on Twitter. Like, Sammy is like one of the most layered wrestlers, man. Like, he really reminds me of Mick Foley. Like, just his mannerisms and how he like switches back and forth between like his different emotions and stuff like that. And you can tell by just like how he, just using his hands and stuff like that. And you can tell by like the way that he looks at certain individuals and all that type of stuff. Like, Sammy, like, again, he's like one of the most layered wrestlers that I've seen, and I'm excited for his singles run. And this whole interaction with Jey Uso, it really shows like the frustration he has for Jey. Because Jey is in a position now where everything, like he said, everything is going good for him, and it's just partially because because of that, Kevin Owens is now on SmackDown, and the reason he separated from KO is because Jey's on Raw and all that stuff. So yeah, I really like the dynamic between these two individuals, and a part of me, especially with the end of the show, I think that Sammy is like slightly happy that the titles are no longer in his possession, because now it's like more so of like an even thing. I guess he feels like even. It's interesting, man. Interesting dynamic.
Very much so. So when Owens was traded to SmackDown, I had wondered if how they would follow up on it, if they would make it as much of a story as I think I had assumed that they would, just to tell the story of like the people that are left behind and how resentful that they might feel towards Jey. I'm glad to see that they did pick up on that note and had now sort of like a bit of tension building here between Sammy and Jey. Now they did extinguish it really quickly, so you wonder if this was just a temporary pause or if it's something in the background that is going to continue to build up within Sammy, so that he and Jey at some point might finally have their interaction and maybe their match down the road. Because we now know Sammy is resentful to Jey for not just the Owens trade, but to I guess he sees him as a bit of an obstacle in his ability to win the tag team titles as well. So I wonder where it ends up. I certainly don't hope to see any sort of like hinting of a heel turn for Sami Zayn. I don't know if that'll be successful at this point, but the idea of him possibly going for a championship, whether against Rollins or whoever succeeds Rollins, I think, is a very viable one. There's just so much left for him as a singles, challenger at least.
100%. Like I'm like kind of really glad that they didn't go the route of like having Kevin turn on Sammy or something like that, because I saw that being like speculated a lot, and I really didn't want to do that whole thing again. It's like so. Like they've done that so many times. Like I'm glad they just found like an amicable thing and the thing that made sense. And I'm honestly surprised, like in storyline, like a lot of these talents are like going at Cody, because Cody's like the reason that most of this stuff is happening. So I'm surprised like a lot of talents are going. I know Drew had a little thing with Cody, but I'm guessing they waiting on that. So we'll see.
That's happening, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
After. Up next, we got a Falls Count Anywhere match between Ricochet and Shinsuke Nakamura. And this starts off where the two of them fight to the back through the gorilla position, where Ricochet says to producer Shane Helms, "Stand back, Hurricane. There's a Ricochet coming through." Did you catch this?
Yeah, I saw that.
Very cute. We go to commercial, and then suddenly we come back with Ricochet standing atop a balcony where he does a shooting star press off the balcony to Nakamura and the bodyguards below. Just insane. Like if this was on a bigger stage in a different year, like this spot would be legendary.
Yeah.
But now it's just sort of a move you do coming back from commercial these days.
Yeah.
Nakamura again hits Ricochet with the GTS, and the GTS at this point, just at least for him, I mean, I don't think it's supposed to lead to anything. It just seems like it's a move he's adopted to his repertoire.
Right. Did you see the USA Network account when they posted a highlight of Nakamura doing the Ricochet last week, and they put a comment under the post, and it was like best in the world. I was like, why?
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, who knows? At this point, honestly,
I don't think that social media person has like any knowledge about like whether CM Punk is coming back, but it's interesting seeing like all these different dots and stuff like that. So,
well, I'm curious to know what Nakamura. Let's say it's not leading to anything. Okay, well, what is Nakamura thinking? Like, does he just want to create some buzz because he knows exactly what the reaction will be?
Right? I think he knows. He has to. It's no way he doesn't know.
Yeah, I would say so too. Yeah, interesting. So it looks good actually when Nakamura does it because he's tall. Yeah. So like the knee actually reaches like the guy. So he does it better than Punk. Even Kenta, I would say. Nakamura kicks Ricochet off the top, sending him through a table on the floor, and he follows up with a Kinshasa for the victory. I thought this was an entertaining Falls Count Anywhere match. The stipulation offered a great way for Ricochet to really just kind of show off his creativity and acrobatics. He looked spectacular here. What did you think about the match?
Before the match started, I really liked the subtitle video packet or the vignette that they aired for Nakamura. Stuff like that is just so simple for your international talents to get them over, because it saves you the whole thing of sending them out there and then they got to deal with the what chance. When you put stuff up like that, it just adds more credibility to them, and it's like it just hypes them up even better. And I'm really liking this heel version of Nakamura. I feel like this is like the most excited I've been watching him in years, because I kind of feel like he just kind of been stale as hell for like I feel like the longest. So now I feel like this is the most interested I'm in the Nakamura. And I always enjoy these programs that don't involve the championship, because you get a lot of different individuals involved that doesn't involve a title. So it's just separate stories, and then you can build people up. Like honestly, I thought Ricochet was probably gonna come out on top, because I thought they was gonna move him towards Rollins eventually, but Nakamura got the win.
Yeah, I found it interesting too, because after a title win, I don't know if like what they were going to do with Nakamura afterwards, but this seems to be a bit of a rehab win for him after the Rollins losses. So, what are they setting him up for? Afterwards, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
But Ricochet did get, he got the loss, but he also got a beautiful highlight reel moment here, which they did replay, thankfully, afterwards. We have Piper and Chelsea in the back. They are with Tegan, Nikki, Carter, and Chance. Chelsea tries to talk down on the others, but Nox says she's learned from the man to not let others disrespect her. So she talks back to Chelsea, and they seem to be building towards some sort of tag team interaction here between Chelsea and Piper versus Nox and Natalya. But first, Piper and Natalya face off tonight, or P, as Chelsea now calls her. So Wade says Natalya sees herself as the mother hen of the locker room, protecting the younger talent. I mean, I don't know if you felt this way, Andrew, but like I totally felt like Natalya's relationship with Tegan, I thought was so sort of like over the top that I thought for sure it would be leading to a swerve.
I thought she was being sarcastic.
Same.
Yeah.
But this seems like it's genuine. And of course, it could still lead to some sort of swerve, but at least for now, they're playing it very sort of like genuine. You want
to know what's good? So I remember Natalya had did an interview I'm gonna say this like 5 or 6 months ago, when she talked about wanting to take like a group of young women on the roster and build like a stable. And she's been around Katana and Kaden like the last 2 or 3 weeks. Like they're always with her, or like she's always in the vicinity with them. So like I think that might be something they might be brewing up. Or maybe getting Tegan involved. Like so with Tegan, like I've always felt that a great story for Tegan was a eventual title match with Rhea Ripley, because of the history between them. Because you remember when she blew her knee out at the Mae Young Classic, she faced Rhea, and Rhea, I don't know if this was just like, because Rhea's young now, but like she was younger back then, and for her to have the awareness to continue in her character and not go into full like, oh, like my real friend is hurt. Like Rhea stayed in character the whole time. It was like trash talking her and all that stuff, and I always felt like there was a genuine story that can be told between them, but I just don't know how if they can get the crowd that invested in Tegan. You know what I'm saying? To want to care about that enough. But I think it could be done. I really do.
Totally. I mean, that sort of was like one of the I would say it was a pivotal moment for both of their careers, because at least for me, like that was when I really first started to notice Rhea Ripley, like the fact that she was able to handle herself that way. And of course for Tegan Nox, I mean, her life story is her knee injuries, right? Especially that one that we all got to see in person. By the way, do you remember the referee of that match?
Jessica Cobb was the referee, right? Oh, was it Aubrey Edwards?
It was Aubrey.
It was Aubrey. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, who called it off. I rewatched it like, maybe a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, I was so impressed like with the way Aubrey was able to handle that situation as well. Anyway, you're completely right. There's a future match down the road between those two, but Tegan has to get up there. You know what I mean? To the point where like audiences could care about them telling that story.
They already had a video package about her knee injuries, right?
I mean, every video package about Tegan has been about the knee injuries, right? But nothing.
That's not funny. I feel so bad laughing at that.
But the Rhea aspect of it, they have not really touched on.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
No, totally. Okay, so Piper Niven versus Natalya is the match. P versus Natalya. Wade. Okay, so Green gets on the apron. Natalya bumps into her. Natalya gets distracted, and then a low crossbody from Niven gets the heels the win. So really not much time here. They worked a really fast pace. crowd wasn't that reactive to it, unfortunately, as like tends to be the case without much story for a lot of these undercard women's matches. Afterwards, the heels beat on Natalya, prompting Tegan to come out to save. So this was like a pretty, bare bones build to a tag title challenge. Anything to add?
Nah, not really. I mean, I do think that they should eventually get Kate and Katana in that mix, and then I'm also wondering like where do you fit in Alba Fire and Aladon? I know they've been doing like dark matches before SmackDown starts, so it would be, and I know they've been airing video package, so but it would kind of be nice if you got them in the mix, and of course integrate some of those NXT women's tandems as well. So I mean, I think next up definitely should be Katana and Kate. Plus they got that cool entrance where they come out with the little machines, and people go crazy for that. So yeah, get them in there. That's a good babyface team to go up against Chelsea and Piper.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their plan is with any of these teams, dude.
They don't know what they do.
Are they actually trying to build a division right now, or are they just kind of like existing?
I think they just winging it.
Like Natalya and Tegan is not really a team. They're like a team of the week, right? They're a team to lead to whatever story might come out of Tegan versus Natalya. The only real teams are the two teams that you mentioned. It's Chance and Carter and Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. So yeah. I hope that they're just saving them so that like they don't get burnt and just wasted for like nothing right now.
Yeah, about to say because Kate and Katana, they already lost to Ronda and Shayna already, and so the Alba and Isla.
They're waiting for this curse to pass. I think they're waiting for a few more people to maybe take the belts before they get them. So Judgment Day are backstage. Priest continues to convince the others to take Drew out behind Rhea Ripley's back. Dom reminds them that Rhea doesn't like the idea. Rhea comes back from a phone call, and Priest gets suspicious of what all these phone calls were about. So they're building a bit of tension between Rhea and Priest right now, as Priest wants to go against Rhea's orders and attack Drew, while Rhea is taking a lot of phone calls and making Priest suspicious. More on this later. Seth Rollins comes out. He says he's confused by Drew's actions last week, where Drew said he wanted him 100%, but he didn't do anything to stop an attack from Damian Priest, but he did stop Dominic with a briefcase. So he calls Drew out. Drew says he's not going to get involved and babysit Rollins every time he gets attacked. Seth asks Drew if he's enlisted help, and Drew is confused by what he means. So Seth Rollins plays a video from last week of an interview with Ricochet, where many people were able to spot this on the internet. Drew McIntyre was seen in the background of the shot speaking to Rhea Ripley. And Drew says, Rhea approached me, okay? And it's none of Seth's business what they were talking about. Seth at this point is convinced that Drew is working with Judgment Day. So he says Drew's failed in a lot in recent years, and now he's decided to get the help of Judgment Day. Drew says he doesn't need anybody and reminds Seth that he beat him last time they had a title match. Drew brings up again the bloodline, and Seth stops him mid-sentence. He tells him to move on from the bloodline, tells him to get over it. Drew says getting the crowd to sing along to his theme song like they do Rollins was his dream while he was champion. But he was champion while nobody was there because it was during the pandemic. He says he stepped up when no one else did. And when the pandemic was over, his moment had passed. But he captured it again at Clash at the Castle in the UK, where 50,000 people saw him go up against Roman Reigns, and he lost thanks to the bloodline. So now he's going to capture lightning in a bottle for a third time, and he's going to face Rollins he's going to force Rollins to reinvent himself again after he beats him. Rollins says nobody knows about climbing back to the top more than he does. He spent 4 years getting to his spot right now, but all he hears from Drew right now is excuses, and it won't get him anywhere he wants to go. Rollins says he'll beat him, and it'll be the best thing to ever happen to Drew because Drew will finally have nobody to blame but himself. What do you think of this segment?
I really like that whole exchange between those two because both of them made like a lot of valid points in between their two characters. I think that this is going to be the catalyst to Drew McIntyre finally snapping. Like I've been waiting for like a heel Drew McIntyre for a long time, and I feel like we're finally about to get. I think him losing to Rollins, that's gonna be like the final straw that's gonna send him over the edge, and then that's when we're gonna get like the. I would not be surprised if like shortly into this heel run or like halfway through it, like he ends up winning the title because I think that heel Drew McIntyre is gonna be. I think that's going to be a real nice transition for Drew. And yeah, I mean, both of them made some solid points in the storyline sense. You know, Seth hit him with the, you know, you need to start complaining about the Clash of the Castle, and Drew's like, well, how am I supposed to get over that when that was my one moment to like recapture that glory that I had 2 years prior, and I haven't had that since. So, and of course, Rollins and McIntyre, I think they have like real great in-ring chemistry. I think the last time they fought was at the pandemic Money in the Bank 2020, and that was like a really good match for, like, you know, again, for having no people in the audience. So yeah, I'm excited for that for them to actually compete at Crown Jewel.
Yeah, I too was really, really impressed by this segment. I thought, first of all, you know, let's give him some credit for putting the little Easter egg in there last week, you know, with Drew talking to Rhea in the background as they're continuing to tease a certain working relationship from the Judgment Day point of view, and Damian Priest now getting very suspicious of Rhea Ripley. You know, I thought it was very effective, and when they did the reveal tonight, it got a big gasp from this audience as they saw it in the background. But man, I thought this segment was a wonderful sort of like reintroduction of Drew McIntyre's trauma, like where he basically didn't just kind of talk about, like, we always thought, okay, Clash of the Castle was like the big, you know, hurtful thing for him. But like, so what? People lose title matches all the time. When you hear it framed from Drew, where he says, you know, it was my dream to have the audience sing my song like they sung yours, Seth, but nobody was here because it was the pandemic. And then when he worked so hard to get to that Clash at the Castle title match again, and only to have it taken away from him, you can start to understand that much, you know, why he's so bitter about it all. And then, like you said, you know, Andrew, leading to this third time, his third opportunity to try to finally capture that moment. Now that if it's taken away from him yet again, I mean, this will certainly be the catalyst of, you know, sending him completely over the top.
And then to his point, like, I'm pretty sure you remember, like, when he and people watching remember when he, like, going into that WrestleMania 36 before like the pandemic, bro, Drew was hot. Like, he was over as hell. Like, especially, like, I know people remember that visual when he won the Royal Rumble in 2020 and the crowd was going nuts, and people thought that like halfway through the match they was gonna start booing him because Edge was in the match. I mean, Adam Copeland was in the match. So yeah, Drew, like, his gripes in the storyline and also in reality, they make a lot of sense into what he's saying and why he could be bitter about it. So yeah, I'm actually hoping he loses this match because I'm ready to see a heel Drew McIntyre.
They've done such a great job right now of this very slow, very subtle, and I mean, maybe not so subtle, but very slow turn towards being, I would say, definitely a tweener right now, and then probably full on babyface very shortly. But Drew is my favorite character in WWE right now. They're doing such a good job with him. We get videos for Bronson Reed versus Gunther coming up later tonight. And then we see some headlines for Logan Paul's fight. It's building up to the Rey Mysterio confrontation. I think they're kind of like making this sound like on Friday.
Yeah, it's gonna happen on Friday. You know what? They should put the title on him. I'm gonna just say it. They should put the title. I think they should put the title on him. I think they should put the title on him. I do.
Which
I
title?
really do. The U.S. title. I think he should be Rey.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think he should be Rey.
Yeah, totally. Why not?
Because what I think is, I think that what they really want to do is, I'm talking about from their perspective, what they want is to get Santos Escobar to that next level. And I think that they think by Logan taking the title off Rey, that'll entice Escobar to get in. And Logan's people, like, you can talk down on Logan. He's good at this, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's good at this. And I think that by Santos Escobar being in there with Logan, it'll take him to that next thing that he needs to hit, because Escobar's kind of like always been like middle tier to me. He's kind of like just there. So I think by him working Logan, like, I think it'll give him that extra oomph.
So you think Logan beats Rey and then Santos versus Logan?
Yeah.
With Santos, like, eventually turning babyface, or him staying heel throughout this whole thing?
Are you talking about? Oh wait, Santos?
Yeah,
like,
Santos versus Logan.
Yeah. So Santos versus Logan, but like, yeah, you said like babyface heel, but like, Santos is the babyface in the in the scenario. So yeah, I think eventually it'll be that Santos versus Logan. I think that's the end goal. Huh? I think they want to get Santos to that next level, and I think that by him working with Logan Paul, he could do that. But definitely a crown jewel if that's the match. I think Logan needs to be Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, you know, as sort of like personalities, I think Logan and Rey works really well. We already saw it for WrestleMania, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm about to say, wait, would you be surprised if Dominic was the one that cost Rey that match? Because this is only like just because Logan he was on his he had did like a podcast interview, and he was talking about like how he always him and Dominic have always talked about like teaming up or forming like an alliance or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So like, and I don't know if he was just saying that just to say that, or maybe that was like a little Easter egg that he left. But he said that they talked about it like behind the scenes of like always doing something together. So maybe that'll be like Dominic costing Ray the match. You know what I'm saying? Then
Yeah. What,
something
and then
along those
Logan
lines.
Paul is an honorary member of Judgment Day? Maybe that's the phone call from Rhea
Jesus.
Ripley.
That okay, maybe you never know, man. That
Man,
might be
social
something.
media kingpins here. Rhea Ripley on TikTok and Logan Paul. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I don't know. I think if there's anybody that might get involved in cost Ray the championship, it might be Santos. You know, if they want to go directly to Santos versus Ray right now, right? But yeah, like Dominic involvement with a Rey Mysterio match, maybe you can never write out. I just feel like we've already done Ray versus Dominic like so much at this point that they might want to take a break from it.
Yeah.
But a Dominic and Logan tag team would be quite the thing. Johnny Gargano takes on Ludwig Kaiser. This comes off of last week's backstage attack during an interview, of course, with DIY. And I didn't really catch it, but did they say Ciampa was taken out because of this attack? Was this the reason?
Yeah, that's why.
So he's going to be out for a while because it doesn't seem like he's back next week either. So Kaiser dominates early on. Gargano then begins a great comeback. Gargano hits Wallow's bell and then one final beat. Vinci pokes Gargano in the eye behind the ref's back to break the count. Gargano chases Vinci outside. Back into the ring, Kaiser takes advantage of the distraction. He hits a jumping enziguri and then hits Sonata's finisher, Deadfall, as Ludwig Kaiser gets the win.
Man, first of all, they need to get Gargano a new theme, because this theme's trash that he has. Like, it sucks compared to that old theme that he used to have. Or maybe he could go get DIY's old Chrome Heart theme song. He needs something better than that. I just want to say, I'm a big like theme song person, and that means a lot to a overall character. And his theme song sucks. But like Gargano, like he been cold, man, to me. Like, and
I've been around.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, even prior to that, like he just, I don't, it just like he came back and you felt that initial like, okay, maybe they'd get something going, and then like it kind of just fell off, and then of course he took time off, he wasn't around. I think he was working a couple of house shows and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't like. I mean, maybe this might be the best way to get Gargano over. Like, he's always been that like babyface underdog. It worked in NXT. Like, he didn't win everything, he lost a lot. And then like they eventually built that sympathy for him. So maybe this is the way to get the people behind Gargano. But I do like what they're doing with Ludwig though. I really do. I like that.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is a result that maybe 3 years ago you wouldn't have necessarily envisioned. Just kind of given their statuses, like in NXT, for instance. But here, Ludwig Kaiser is higher ranked than Johnny Gargano. And they're making an effort to make Ludwig Kaiser feel like something that's more significant than just an underling for Imperium. Whereas Johnny Gargano really does feel like he's starting from the bottom right now, and. This, obviously is some very simple build to an eventual tag team match between DIY and Imperium. And I think they're just trying to show that Gargano needs Ciampa in order to, sort of neutralize the extra man advantage that Imperium have. But beyond that, like, I have to think, especially with Paul Levesque in charge, he knows the amount of talent and potential that's there with Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, and that they're just kind of slowly building them. But it might be pretty slow. At this point, I do wonder if they'll even have a place on WrestleMania, because it's hard to envision right now with how loaded these rosters are.
Yeah, Gargano and Ciampa are definitely Paul Levesque guys, 100%. Those are his guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a real slow burn. I know Gargano's facing Giovanni next week on Raw, so I wouldn't be surprised if Ciampa were to return on that show and maybe help him out, because I don't see the way that the story has been told with Imperium is that Ludwig can get the job done, but Giovanni can't get it done. So I think that Gargano's gonna get his win back, and he's gonna beat Giovanni. And then I don't know how this, because at this point, like they make it seem like they about to get Giovanni to boot out of Imperium the way he coming up short in these performances. So yeah, I guess we're gonna see.
Becky Lynch is backstage, and she is met by Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae, who want to know when Becky will give an opportunity to Indy, who, of course, never lost the NXT championship. Becky says, "You're right," and she's going to go to Pierce right now to make it official. And then we get a brief face-to-face between Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. Becky and Rhea, to me, has always felt like a Mania destination, but could they possibly do it sooner than that, Andrew? Especially now that you have Jade Cargill in the mix?
I see with Rhea and Becky, I think it could go to a WrestleMania. I can definitely see that, because like I feel like with Rhea, the way that Triple H books her, he presents her in a light where she has the ability to maybe cross over in the two different sections. Like she gets very involved in the men's division, and then also the way she presents herself is that she's above the women's division as well. And it's just an interesting dynamic that they present Rhea in. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go Rhea and Becky at WrestleMania. I am like curious to see how they get the NXT title off Becky Lynch. Like, who would that go to? Maybe they put it back on Tiffany Stratton. Maybe they put it on somebody new. Curious to see how that turns out. But yeah, Rhea and Becky for WrestleMania. That I would pretty locked. You could lock that in, I think.
So if that's the case, I mean, this is just sort of another instance of them, doing a very sort of long-term tease of what the WrestleMania program could be. But we also can't rule out the possibility of these two meeting sooner. Plans may change, all that. Becky did say at the end of the segment as they're fading to black, she did say Becky 2 belts. So I mean, it's still a possibility that I guess this match could happen really anytime, even while Becky's still NXT champion. Drew McIntyre is backstage and he encounters Sami Zayn and thanks Sami for helping defuse the situation between him and Jey Uso last week. Drew says he was apprehensive about Sami after Sami left the bloodline, but Sami has stepped up and he's become a leader. Sami says thanks, but then Drew says, wait, that's what I wanted to say to you before tonight until you instantly forgave Jey Uso. So really being an asshole here, okay? Giving the compliment and then just pulling it back and saying, I meant to say that, but now I don't feel that way. So Drew says that Jey has done the opposite of what Sami Zayn has done. Sami says that they don't see eye to eye on this and agrees with Seth that Drew needs to let the bloodline stuff go. Sami says he can relate, that it's hard to put that stuff behind him, but Drew is the only one right now who can't forgive Jey. Drew says a lot of people seem like they can relate to him, but Sami, you're not somebody who can relate because you've never been a world champion. He says, Sami, at this rate, you'll never be a world champion by just trusting anybody like he has. And this gets Sami angry enough to challenge Drew to a match next week. I thought this was so great.
Yeah, I did too.
Man,
I did too. Man, like, see the thing, we just talked about it, but like they're slowly planting these seeds, man, for a Drew McIntyre heel turn, and I'm like genuinely excited about this, like this dude turn a heel, man. Like I think this heel run gonna be something nice, man.
Oh, these seeds are like, like sprouting already,
yeah.
dude. Like we're in the springtime, right? And these things are already coming out. Like I love the fact that you got this little scene between these two because these are two of Roman's more notable challengers throughout this run. Drew at Clash at the Castle and then Sami at Elimination Chamber. Two contenders that I think a lot of people thought would have been the ones to take the belt off of Roman at one point. Yeah. But I love that they can use both of those sort of experiences to contrast how each has kind of handled the loss. We see that Sami has moved on, even tonight, being able to forgive Jey for, I guess, getting Owens traded. But Drew has not. And as a viewer, it's kind of hard to say, like, who is right here. I mean, we know, yes, like, Drew is the asshole in this scenario.
He kind of right.
But, like, you understand him, right? And when you look at it, you kind of agree that, like, Drew has the killer instinct still within him, where Sami he's just kind of letting things slide a little too easily. Like Drew still has that fire. He still has that hunger to get revenge, to be champion. Whereas Sami says he does, but does he? Like, is he a killer? To quote Logan Roy. You know what I mean? So
I think the thing with Sami, especially now that KO is off of Raw, like KO, I felt like KO was like more of what's a good word? I feel like he was like kind of Sami's like backbone a little bit. Like he bought like when Sami would try to be all like diplomatic in these situations, Kevin Owens would be like, bro, let's just fight. Like let's just squash all the extra talking. Let's put all the extra stuff to the side. Let's just get to it. And I feel like now that Sami is by himself, you're going to see like a more vulnerable Sami Zayn who tries to maybe align himself with a couple of different individuals to find like some type of home, I guess. And like Drew kind of like just sees right through that in this whole scenario. And it's also, you talked about like the dynamic between the two in terms of like how they handle loss, also how they view Jey Uso in this whole scenario. Like it just the different variations of like how Sami felt about Jey in that initial segment that they had, and then he immediately forgave him. And Drew just like from the moment Jey stepped on Raw, he's like hated this dude. So there's some good storytelling going on in this whole scenario, man.
Very much so. Up next, we've got Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler. This is a non-title match. Early on, Shayna hits Rhea with a hard arm drag takedown, and Rhea takes this high on her shoulder. It looked very convincing here. Ripley continues to sell her arm throughout the match, so she's working as a very clear babyface in this match. Again, remember, she requested Dominic not be ringside because she wanted to do this herself. This ended up being like a pretty dominant performance from Shayna. I thought her offense looked great. Hits a big German suplex, a big knee for 2. Rhea fights back. She goes for the riptide, but upon landing, Shayna counters the riptide with a beautiful armbar. I'm not sure if they did this in their prior meetings, but it was a beautifully designed and executed counter. Out comes Nia Jax at this point, and out comes Raquel, out comes Zoe Stark, and everybody fights on the outside. Stark somehow ends up in the ring, and she attacks Rhea and DQs the match. Afterwards, Rhea wants a Nia confrontation. Zoe ends up fighting her as well, and Zoe ends up taking all of them out. So, this just really was meant to introduce Zoe Stark into the mix of, this sort of like, tough, top women's contenders type of battles. But man, I've really kind of had my limit of these like DQ finishes. I understand you want to try to get everybody ready for this 5-way, but man,
you just wish they could have came up with another way to do it. Probably have just like a more decisive finish to the Baszler Ripley match.
And I'll tell you why. It's because I thought this was a really good match, Andrew. I thought technically it was strong. I thought there was effective babyface selling from Rhea. I thought there was a lovely counter in the finish, but the crowd was cold for it. And when they're cold for a Rhea Ripley match, it tells you that like I don't think they've done such a great job building the contenders. So nonetheless, let's fast forward. They do announce for Crown Jewel, we have a 5-way between Nia, Raquel, Shayna, Rhea, and Zoe Stark for the Women's Championship. Your thoughts overall on the match as well as the Crown Jewel announcement?
So as soon as I saw, even last week when I saw this match get announced, I kind of had a feeling it was going to turn out this way. Like, but I didn't factor in Zoe Stark. I just thought it was going to be Nia and Raquel getting involved, and it was going to be some type of DQ finish. I had going into it, I just had a feeling we going to have no decisive winner in this scenario. Like, in terms of the match, like I think with Shayna Baszler's offense, right? I think it's like, so I've never thought that Shayna was a big arena wrestler in terms of like her offense, because like her offense is very like it was really suited to that NXT audience because everything was so close and packed in. So it really wasn't like when you got people looking up at the rafters and stuff like that. I just feel like it's a very different viewing experience for those in arena versus those watching on TV in terms of how they perceive Shayna Baszler. Like we watch her and we see like the intricate stuff she does and how good she is at the technical aspect. But like in terms of like watching her in arena, it might not be that intriguing.
The Ronda Shayna match, the Ronda's last match, I thought was a perfect example of that. They went for like more of a blood sport feel. I actually happened to be in arena, so I had that live experience. I liked it, but it didn't really work well, throughout the rest of the crowd, and that was a stadium show.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And as far as the match goes, the Crown Jewel match, I'm gonna assume that Zoe takes the pin in this scenario. I think they definitely want to keep Nia strong, definitely want to keep Raquel strong, and I can see Shayna and Zoe just like the odd one out in terms of like who you keeping strong. So I can definitely see Rhea pinning her and retaining the title.
I hope the match is good, because as long as the match is good and it gets talked about, I mean, everybody could be elevated as a result of it. So we shall see. Crown Jewel. Adam Pearce is in the back, and she again makes Becky versus Indy for Raw next week to be official. And then Xia Li comes out and she's pissed off that she hasn't had her shot against Becky yet. So it seems like they might be going through these sort of like Becky open challenges with like a 2-week warning where like somebody will make the challenge first and then somebody else will be in line. So they'll have to get in queue. And then the week after, you get reminded of who is next in line. And I think Xia Li seems to be next in line.
And then she still got Lyra on the 28th or the 23rd, I think.
Right.
Yeah, for NXT Halloween Havoc night. Well, I think it's the 24th. It's one of those days. But yeah, she got Lyra coming up too for Halloween Havoc. So
she's very busy. So I guess Xia will be getting the winner of that one. Most likely Becky Lynch, I suppose. Okay, so in walks Jade Cargill at this point, confronting Becky Lynch. She gets a big reaction from this crowd. Jade says, "Nice title." And Becky says, "Get in line." Jade laughs as Becky walks away and says she's funny as Pierce welcomes her to Monday Night Raw. Your thoughts on the latest in the Jade Cargill introduction?
I'm liking the way that they're slowly building up Jade. Like like you said, she's getting like some nice reactions on these shows for somebody that hasn't like appeared in front of a live audience yet. Like I think they're doing a really good. And I think that the initial promotion week that they did really helped a lot. Just treat her like a real big superstar. And I think that, like, I've always been in a belief just in pro wrestling. If you want people to believe a certain talent is a star, you got to present them like that. Like I've always felt like that. And like even something is like if you're looking at AEW, I've always said that, like with Orange Cassidy, like the reason people are so interested in Orange is because they present him as if he's a big deal. When you condition your audience to make people feel like that, they're going to feel like that. They look at Orange as like this is one of their guys, and they treat him like that. So and I think that just works in anything. You make people think that, and they will believe that. That's just pro wrestling. So I think with Jade, it's this simple formula. They make her feel like a big deal. People will view her as a big deal, and she hasn't even done anything on screen yet. Yeah.
It helps that she looks like a big deal.
Yeah, she looks like a big deal too, and like that whole conversation with Charlotte, like them being the same size, that was nice. Yeah, that was a nice visual.
Yeah, but like how many people are part of WWE's company that look like a big deal but don't get treated like that, right? So they're really kind of like doing everything that they should with somebody like a Jade Cargill, and by positioning her even in these backstage interactions with the Charlotte, with the Becky, and I assume in the future a Rhea Ripley as well. Yeah. You're educating our audience to let them know that she's at this level without even her taking a step into a ring. So
yeah, I'm about to say we still got the Rhea confrontation, and I'm pretty sure everybody's waiting on the Bianca Belair eventual confrontation. Like, what brand do you think she's gonna land on? Like, which one do you think she's gonna be on permanently?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think a lot of that is determined by. You know what? I was gonna say a lot of it might be determined by her WrestleMania match, but she could win the Rumble and she could really go to any show after that. So it doesn't and she would be like a front runner, I think, at this point, maybe for a Royal Rumble victory. So depends.
Well, that'd be a great way to establish her right out the gate. You haven't won a Rumble. I mean, it'll get no better than that. In terms of establishing the talent,
yeah. I mean, at this point, like from now until then, like, what are the best matches you can get out of her? What's the best way to showcase her? Is it on the 3-hour show or the 2-hour show? I have a feeling they might stick to like the tried and true Jade formula at least to start, by giving her like quick squash wins, and there might be more bodies on Raw, but SmackDown will demand less airtime, so you can make an argument for both.
The first thing I was thinking about when you said that, in terms of like just making sure her presentation remains strong. I think that the first thing they'll probably do is have her face Zelina Vega because of the size difference. Like that visual of Jade in the ring against Zelina. Like, did you see on SmackDown, like when Charlotte was standing next to Zelina, she like her like holding her child, like walking her across the street. Like that, because when Charlotte came in to make the save, like it was just like a funny visual. But like I think that'll be something they do. Like have Jade and Zelina go one-on-one. That'll be their first, foray in ring.
It's a great idea. Jackie is in the back with Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. Just a quick little promo about Judgment Day later on tonight. Tease up Jay saying yeet. Reed and Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship here. We've got our meat match of the night. Gunther goes for a powerbomb very early on, but can't pick Reed up. Reed escapes a sleeper and goes up to Tsunami, but Gunther stops him. We come back from commercial, and Reed's chest is already purple from Gunther's chops. Reed delivers a big superplex for a 2 count as the crowd reacts really well to that near fall. Reed then goes for the Tsunami, but Gunther escapes, lands his own big splash, which Reed kicks out of. Gunther tries once more for the powerbomb. This time he hits it. Spectacular move and a spectacular title defense from Gunther here. What do you think about the match?
Another banger from the greatest Intercontinental champion. Another one, man. Like, and I really like that they didn't allow Bronson to connect with his Tsunami, so it kept it strong, because that's very important, man. Like even to this day, like I know a lot of people aren't that invested in Baron Corbin. I'm really not either, to be honest. But one thing that they always had was nobody kicked out of the end of days, and they did it with Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 38. Which I don't know why they did that, but I really like that they kept Bronson's finish strong, so it still gives him something to hold on to. Like, nobody's ever kicked out of that, and he can always use that in future arguments against Gunther. Like, if I would have hit you with that, I would have beat you. So like that's always a thing he can always rely back on. But yeah, Gunther, like when it comes time for like December way, like I really think people need to throw him in that Wrestler of the Year conversation. Like the year that he's had, even starting off with the Royal Rumble when he went, who was he, number 2 or number 1 in the
I don't
Rumble?
remember.
He was either it was either one or two, and going the distance. Like this, that performance starting off his year and like the great Intercontinental title matches that he's had. Like, dude, he's legitimately one of the best wrestlers this year, up there with Ospreay. I think Ospreay's number 1. That's for me just right now in terms of overall. But yeah, Gunther's up there. He's having a hell of a year.
It's almost hard to make a comparison between a WWE wrestler like
Yeah,
Gunther and
yeah,
somebody like Will Ospreay who's able to
yeah.
have like 40-minute matches, like
That's true.
every single weekend across multiple promotions. Whereas Gunther, I mean, the defenses feel a lot less, I think, frequent. And when they do happen, I mean, he gets a good amount of time, especially on TV. But it just, I think the scale just doesn't really quite match the same.
It's different. Yeah.
It would be like, bottom line, it'll be hard for anybody to unseat Will Ospreay. I feel this.
Oh yeah,
year,
Will got it. Yeah, he got it for sure.
But
yeah.
you can at least make an argument, that at least in the WWE he would be the top guy. So
yeah.
this was great.
I was more so like Gunther's like in. He's somewhere in that conversation. Like, but of course, like Will is number 1 for me, but like I think Gunther's like somewhere in there, like in that mix. Yeah,
I'll tell you, like, by keeping these Gunther matches on TV for the most part, they're really elevating, I think, at least the perception that on WWE TV you don't get these sort of like hard hitting strong style type of like exhaustive matches that you would typically only see on either New Japan or like an AEW or the independents or elsewhere outside of the WWE. Like they delivered some really great matches and have managed to fit them in a TV format that have left audiences incredibly satisfied. So
and real quick, whenever Ilya Dragunov loses the NXT championship, I need him versus Gunther on the main roster.
That's a WrestleMania match, man.
That's Mania, yes.
Totally. Yeah. Where does Reed go from here, you think?
I mean, maybe you try to find something similar to what they're doing with Shinsuke right now. Like you just try to find him somebody to.
Dude, I hope it's not Ricochet. I've had enough.
It's probably going to be Ricochet.
Oh, all right.
Because weren't they all like entangled for quite a while? So yeah, it's probably good. Ricochet probably going to be on the receiving end of that. So yeah, but I want to ask you, like, who do you think is going to unseat Gunther as champion? If you just could name somebody,
okay,
would it probably be Dragunov?
So I see Gunther versus Rollins for the main title at WrestleMania. Like I think Rollins is just like the guy this year, and like at their quote unquote season finale, for him to face off against the biggest villain threat on Raw for the World Championship would to me make a lot of sense. But yeah, Gunther might lose the title before that. I think at this point Gable might be the front runner, just given the story and the long term build that they're putting on Gable.
Survivor Series.
Sure. Yeah.
I can see that.
In front of the daughter. Bring the kid out.
Man.
Celebrate. Miz is in the back with Jackie Redmond, and Miz is very upset that Pierce put him in the third hour. He says you shouldn't start with somebody like Sami Zayn, as he mocks Sami Zayn's promo about Kevin Owens. Miz says Nick Aldis should take over for Pierce on Raw 2. At this point, Nia Jax interrupts him, takes the microphone, and says she's taken everybody's best shots, and she's still standing and looking pretty. And she does the squashing on Raw. Miz at this point gets interrupted again by Jackie, who says that they're out of time. So certainly not building to Miz versus Nia Jax, I don't think, unless but they have done intergender with Nia in the past. But more likely maybe Miz versus Zayn coming out of this.
Probably. I mean, I'm not really like invested in like much of anything Miz is doing. Like Miz is kind of just like there. He can be useful at times, but it's kind of
That's sort of his stock at the moment.
Yeah.
Adam Pearce is in the back again as Rhea is mad about the people interrupting her matches, and this is where we get our 5-way match made official. In walks Indus Sher with Jinder Mahal as they also want to talk to Adam Pearce. So they're in the mix again, seemingly.
They trying this again. I don't think it's gonna work, bro.
Maybe they've done a lot of training in the background, maybe a lot of retooling. They do need tag teams, I suppose, to challenge.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, it's Judgment Day as the champion, so how's that going to work?
Yes, yeah.
Maybe they'll take on the New Day or the Viking Raiders, whoever comes out of that one.
Probably. Like I just don't see like it's just kind of like guys they've tried it before and it just doesn't click. I feel like they're just there.
They're just like a big obstacle you would think for a babyface team to maybe beat before getting out of
DIY
or possibly Alpha Academy, who are in
There
the
you
back.
go.
Maxine is teaching Otis Pilates, and Tozawa has joined in on their workout as well this week. Gable doesn't just want the IC title. He and Otis now want the tag team titles. So the New Day hear this, they come up because they also want the tag titles, and they all end up gyrating their hips with Otis as Tozawa says thank you in Japanese before doing sort of like a dumbbell dance that Woods calls nasty. Also, this leads to New Day versus Alpha Academy next week.
That actually might be very good if they get time. New Day versus Alpha Academy. Yeah,
Definitely. And I
they get
wonder if
time.
Tozawa ends up being a more of a mainstay with Alpha Academy. I mean, he certainly fits, I guess, the tone.
You might as well at this point. I mean, instead of having them like roaming around the background, being scared of Rhea Ripley 24/7.
Yeah. We've kind of exhausted that. Next week on Raw, it's Sammy versus Drew, Becky versus Indy. Logan Paul will also be on Raw, and then New Day versus Alpha Academy. We get the Kofi Kingston video showing, the opening of the center in Ghana. And then Imperium are backstage as Gunther congratulates Kaiser for fulfilling his responsibility while looking at Vinci and saying he didn't. Vinci is confused because he helped Kaiser beat Gargano. Gunther clarifies that he wants Gargano stretchered out of the building, and it'll be Kaiser's responsibility next week after Vinci's match with him. So Vinci versus Gargano also made for next week. Jey and Cody versus the Judgment Day. This is the main event of our edition of Raw. This is for the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championships. As I mentioned, Judgment Day come out at about 10:30. The match does not start until 10:45. Dominic tries to get involved early on. He puts Priest's foot on the ropes to break a count from the crossroads. This leads to the heels taking the advantage throughout the commercial break. Get a hot tag from Jey, and then they hit the Cody 1D as Finn kicks out. I don't think anyone has kicked out of this move before, but it makes all the sense why they would sacrifice this maybe a little bit later. Dominic distracts Jey, leads to Balor getting the knees up for a Jey splash. Then out comes Sami Zayn to equalize as he goes after Dom. Damian Priest takes out Sami Zayn, and then Cody takes Priest out. We get a low blow from Priest on the floor, which nullifies Cody on the floor. And then we get a big power bomb to Cody through the announce table to get Cody out of the match. This leads to Balor and Jey being left alone as we get Jey spearing Finn and then Jey spearing Priest. So he's taking that move now from Roman. And out comes Jimmy Uso, who gets on the apron, super kicks Jey, leading to Finn hitting the coup de grace on Jey Uso. The Judgment Day are tag team champions again. What did you think about the match?
So I think it was a good match. Like I was more so like, so when the finish happened, I was like, why are they taking the titles off Cody and Jey so early when they just won it at Fastlane? And a part of me was thinking like, did they want to have Cody and Jey hold the title just so they can get that one face off with Roman and Cody, so they can have that one interaction, like so he'll have cause to come to SmackDown, and you know what I'm saying? Like I was just thinking, like maybe that was the reason that they put the titles on Cody and Jey, just so they can get that one thing to remind people, hey, this is a thing. Remember, this is a thing, Cody and Roman. So once they got that, it's like, okay, now we can just go back to our regularly scheduled.
I think that's a very good theory. I think there might be multiple reasons why they decided on this like 2-week reign for these two. I mean, for one thing, it gave Fastlane maybe a bit of like news, to come out of. You built to what you might classify as a bit of a dream match between the baby faces and Owens and Zayn versus these two for that 1 week. They really defended these titles like, pretty frequently in these like several weeks. So you got a good run out of them, and that exchange with Roman on SmackDown as well. So it could be all those things. And of course, this rematch tonight as well.
Yeah. And then of course, Jimmy costing in the match. So that's going, further, the story that's already there. I honestly, when they first did the whole, splitting of these two, Jimmy and Jey, I was kind of like, can y'all actually get this to WrestleMania? But like now that I'm seeing it like kind of unfold, they probably gonna get it to WrestleMania, and I think it's because it's probably still gonna be as like hot in terms of like the interest in it. So
man, it's been 3 years, dude. It's been like 3 or 4 years at this point with this bloodline stuff, and
I know, right?
Like we have kind of gotten a bit tired of it, I would say, in recent months, especially with Roman not being around. But I mean, Jay's doing really well, I would say, on SmackDown. His integration right now, and this build towards what we would presume to be War Games, I think is already in really good shape. you know.
What do you think is going to be the War Games team?
So I think it'll be the Bloodline mixing and a mix of with the Judgment Day as well. So I don't even know like how many bodies you could possibly fit
That's it's usually 4-on-4. So
or 5-on-5.
5-on-5,
Yeah.
5-on-5, yeah.
Yeah.
So it would
they
you would assume
6, like so what? Like, but
yeah,
yeah, okay,
you could
5-on-5. All right.
You could do it. You got Roman. You would want to have Finn in there.
Finn, Priest. You got to have Dom in it, right? But I could also see Dom not being a part of it. Maybe he'll get another match.
Yeah,
okay?
I can see Dom getting involved.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then Finn, Priest, like Solo, Jey, Roman, right?
Yeah.
Babyface side, you've got Cody, Jey. Who do you think? It's Sammy?
Sammy got to be in it. He has to be.
Owens? Does he make it?
Got to be. Yeah, okay. Owens got to be a lock. And I'm trying to think. Drew?
No, I don't think so. I think Drew's long gone, past all that. So if Cena is available, it'll be Cena. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm about to say because Drew, it was Crown Jewel is November 4th, Survivor Series November 25th. It's like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. So I mean, if they wanted to, maybe Drew cost his damn team the match. You know what I'm saying? Maybe.
Yeah, okay. That's good too.
Maybe that'd be where he actually snaps. But yeah, that's a good little War Games lineup. And then you never know. Maybe Phil Brooks makes
sure. Why not? Comes up from underneath the ring, hands muffins to everybody, just completely takes over.
I saw the I think it was from Fight for Selected. They targeting Randy Orton to come back in Survivor Series. So I'm interested to see how he factors into all that. Randy getting back in the mix. So
a lot of interesting pieces here. But hey, let's talk about this match as well. I thought it was a really strong match here. You know, I mean, I think part of the so Jey, you know, he's been really well integrated into Raw, I would say, in terms of story. I still feel like he's a little bit untested as a singles wrestler, like in big match scenarios, at least from what I've seen him. So I thought putting him in this sort of tag scenario with Cody was like a nice little way of like gradually introducing him. Yes, he's still like, this is a makeshift team. So like he still very much feels like a single star, but he got to wrestle in like tag team matches where he can highlight his like hot tags and just kind of ease his way. And I would say like the Fastlane press conference, as well as just like the interviews that he had with Cody throughout these 2 weeks, really like helped, I would say, ingrain him, you know, to the WWE Raw audience, I would say, as a babyface.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it added a lot. I mean, I think people already knew Jey had a lot of personality, but like it just like further endeared him, like you said, to the audience. And I mean, like when you're looking at the title reign, not every title reign has to be like this long, drawn out thing. Like some things they run their course, and I mean, I think they could have definitely got more out of it, but I really don't need to see Cody and Jey holding the tag titles, you know, for that long. And I mean, Judgment Day is your most dominant faction on Raw, and they have like literally majority of the championships. So I mean, you know,
I think a lot of people are disappointed by it, you know, because they are a very like lovable team for the time that we got to see them.
Yeah.
But they're here to be single stars, right? And they're more valuable as single stars, and you can eventually maybe pair them up again. But for now, like, I think that this is fine. I also forgot like AJ was also taken out by Jey and Solo, so he could possibly be a name as well that you feel.
Yeah.
What do you think overall of this edition of Raw?
It's a solid season premiere of the show, much like SmackDown. They got a lot of good storyline continuation in this thing. Like my favorite thing was the Rollins and Drew exchange. Like that was my favorite. That was my highlight coming out of the show, man. And I'm like really excited for that one-on-one match that they're gonna have. I'm excited to see. I'm pretty sure they're gonna follow up what they did in front of no fans at the PC and Money in the Bank 2020. So yeah, I think that's gonna be a real good match between those two. That's my highlight from the show.
That was also a highlight for me, along with Drew's interaction with Sami Zayn, which I thought was awesome. In terms of wrestling, I thought the main event was very good, but match of the night for me was Gunther versus Bronson Reed. So it's a match I would recommend that people go and check out, along with the main event as well. Let's go to Manny from Pacoima for some feedback here. Again, Manny was the subject of this week's edition of Postmarks, or last week's edition, I should say. So go and check that out over in the Post Wrestling Cafe feed for free. Manny from Pacoima says, first things first, much love to Andrew Scoops Thompson. This month's edition of the NWA pod was amazing. Had me laughing so hard at work.
Appreciate you, man.
Where does Scoops come from? I mean, obviously, yes, like from your line of work, but when did it become a thing?
I really don't know. I don't know who started that. Like,
I heard it from Ray last night. That's all.
Ray said scoops, and like I've heard that before, but like I don't know where that came from. I have
Okay.
zero scoops, people. All I have are transcriptions. I'm guessing those count as something.
No, you got scoops, dude. Like, yeah, definitely. You're scooping these stories from like nowhere that nowhere's watched, nobody's paying attention to, and you're making them headlines. So you're definitely scoops to me. Pretty good season premiere. Gunther versus Reed delivered. Gunther, much like Ilya Dragunov, never has a bad match. I wonder who his next challenger will be on the mid-season finale of Raw. Tozawa stole the show with that little routine of his. I need to see John and Way give that routine a try. I don't think so. Me, maybe. John, no way. If you have time, I definitely recommend watching the main event between Aramis and Rey Horus versus Gringo Loco and Arez from Saturday's GCW Blood on the Hills. It was such a spectacle being there live.
I might have to check that out. Thanks for the recommendation, man.
Thank you as always, Manny, for the recommendations. We go to Muggin, who sends a Breaking Bad gif of saying he can't keep getting away from it. Okay. Once again, Raw ended with a familiar sight of Judgment Day having all the gold. We're right back to where we started. So now what? It cut off a lot more interesting story directions by spoiling that group rotten and rant. IC title match was dope. Sammy and Drew got some deft character development. The Falls Count Anywhere was wild, and I didn't see the Jimmy Uso run-in at all. I'm getting a little sick of this stranglehold. Solid episode. Do you? I mean,
you talking about the stranglehold of Judgment Day?
Yes.
I mean, I definitely can see why people get tired of seeing it, but at the same time, like they have always made you come to the realization that Judgment Day is the most dominant faction on the show, and they're going to obtain dominance over everything else. So I'm not really surprised that they're back on top. But I mean, I do get where people coming from, because like you said, Wade, like a lot of people endeared themselves to that Cody and Jey tag team, and they probably wanted a lot more, and it just ended so abruptly.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, when you have a strong heel threat, I think that just naturally creates maybe easier storytelling for your baby faces to chase.
It is.
So could just be that.
I always feel like it's easy to book. Like, you can book a good heel champion, but I feel like there can be times when the baby face can get a bit stale. Maybe it just depends on like the challenge. It's so many different variables within that. But like with heels, it's so much easier to move things around and plug people in and have different opponents come in. So,
but yeah. I will say, like, I did think that they would have the titles on Cody and Jey a bit longer, just for them to be able to pass through the SmackDown. You know what I mean? Like to continue some of those interactions, but especially like with this build towards War Games. And again, I say this saying that it matters at all. Who signs to what brand?
Don't they just show up anyway? I mean, Jimmy showed up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jimmy showed up. You're right. Like, and didn't Dominic show up last week on Friday?
Yeah,
like,
I think so. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
You were doing so funny about that, like how me and you just had that whole conversation about like maybe they just put the titles on them so you can go to SmackDown. Like, you just show up. Just show up on the show.
Hey, and before I go on, how could I forget a super chat here from Max P123 ABC, who says, idea for a name of Cody and Jay's tag finish, Yeet Street. Yeet Street. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a L, brother.
Number one, unfortunately, I don't know if it'll be much of use after today. But number two, I don't know if it's much better than Cody 1D, or like, what is it? The affirmations, the crossroads, or whatever John was saying that they were calling it on Friday. Anyway, R.I.P. the Cody 1D. Also, this is not a super chat, but just a mega chat here from the Godfather Nate Milton, who says, "Good show, brothers." And yes, the nephew's got more scoops than Raisin Brand and the National Enquirer combined. Ain't that the truth?
Hey, shout out to my man Nate Milton. So last night, that show, I feel like that was one of my favorite NWA podcasts that we've ever done. And like Nate really set the tone when he read a comment. Nate actually kept this individual's confidentiality a secret, but he said there was somebody that sent him like I guess like a DM or feedback that he got on the podcast section comments, where they were like, they felt like we were didn't have the same energy on last show. And I feel like this show, like, it was like the energy did not stop all the way through. It was just interesting hearing somebody say that. But I think Nate reading that like really set the tone for the show, and it carried his way all the way through. So in case that individual felt that you didn't have the energy, you got a lot of energy. on the last episode.
It is not just one of my favorite post-wrestling podcasts. It is not just one of my favorite wrestling podcasts. It's one of my favorite podcasts, period. So go
Appreciate
check
that.
out the NWA podcast out right now in the post-wrestling feed. And yes.
I just want to add in real quick and then shout out my guy Nate one more time. Yesterday, I was like real tied up like news and stuff. So Nate actually took the time to like plot the news out. And like he took like the reins on that this week, and he like sort of gave me like so I could just come on and just give my opinion. So I definitely wanted to shout out Nate for that. Like he took a load off for me. So yeah, big shout out to Uncle Nate Milton, the man.
Shout out to the Podfather, Nate Milton. Andrew Thompson, where can people find your work and find more of you in general?
Yeah, find me on Twitter and Instagram, @Thompson__ interviews, Andrew Thompson interviews YouTube channel, and you find the written work over at the Post Wrestling site.
Anything you're working on that you want to let the people know about?
Just articles.
Non-stop. Okay. If you want to find out everything that this man does, go to postwrestling.com. Anytime you see Andrew Thompson, click on Andrew Thompson. You can see the gluttony of information this man puts out on a daily basis. It is completely overwhelming, and we are so grateful to have him. And this was a real pleasure, Andrew. I thought you were fantastic on the show. Loved your analysis of every single event here we got to discuss.
Man, it's great to do the show, man. I always enjoy coming on here and chatting with anybody from the great Post Wrestling Network, man. So yeah, well, hopefully we get to do this again.
Definitely. Tomorrow we have the return of Up Next as Poison Rana breaks down the post Tuesday, Super Tuesday edition of WWE NXT. And they will be up here on YouTube live at 10:05 or 10:15 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/postwrestling. And then Wednesday, I return with John Pollock to talk about the post-Title Tuesday edition of AEW Dynamite.
Hey, wait, how loaded do you just mentioned like the head-to-head, how loaded do you think that with WWE do the tricks they're going to pull out for the SmackDown and Collision head-to-head on November 17th?
I don't think they're going to, it's not really a fair fight, is it? Like, that's really not a fair fight because one's network, one's cable. And I do okay, you're gonna get Roman, all right. Cena, if Cena's around, you'll get Cena. I don't know if they have to do much more than that to like guarantee.
SmackDown averages like 2 million on a basis, right? Regular basis. So it's
Now it would really tell you something if like they really loaded it with like the Undertaker. I'm trying to think, like I don't know, Bret Hart, and Shawn Michaels have like another like powwow. I don't know, like, name it, man. DX reunion, you know, whatever. Like it would tell you something if they went that far. Like
I feel like they will just the poke
to really embarrass Collision. I'm more interested to see like what Tony Khan pulls up for that Collision.
Yeah,
what can he do?
I don't really like, honestly, bro. Like even when they were doing the NXT head, I just because like at AEW they switching nights, and I'm just like NXT that's their regular slot. They air on that thing and then they like just the Codys, the Cenas, the Undertakers, the Oscars. Like is in AEW they have their fair share of top notch stars as well. Yeah. But it was just like even with the Collision and SmackDown, it's like I just don't think that's a fair.
So Andrew, maybe more important than the actual head to head is the aftermath and how Tony Khan reacts on social media. That to me, I think will be the true test of who wins or loses that night. Okay, how deep can WWE get into Tony Khan's Twitter? For him to tweet something really embarrassing for his entire company. I'd be very more so curious to see like how he operates his social media from that point.
I think it's best on like the AEW Dynamite. That was a good show that they put on at the head-to-head NXT. Mm-hmm. I feel like it would be best, man, if Tony like just run your race. Like we talked about this on the NWA podcast last night. Like the WWE is a juggernaut, man. Like y'all, but at the same time, like the same things that Tony Khan did in 2019 may not apply here in 2023. But like the whole, we're the underdogs thing. Like y'all kind of on a level playing field to a certain degree. So like that whole mentality of like they're holding us down, even though WWE have done things, sketchy things that have been reported as like contract tampering and all that stuff. But like, I just think it's time for Tony, man, to just focus on your product. Like, don't be so, okay, we're against WWE. Just run your own race, man. Cause he puts on a good show, but like, it's just like when you get caught up in all the extra stuff, it just kind of makes him look bad. Like it was entertaining for the first week. Like it was hilarious. Like when he first did it, but like when it's like 3 days past and you still complaining about it, it's like, all right, dude. Like let it go, bro.
We got one late super chat here from Andy who says, "Is Nakamura adopting the GTS, or can we hope?" I mean, this is the second time he's done it on TV, so we would think so. And again, it looks great when he does it.
Wait, where's your Punk Survivor Series meter at right now on a scale from 0 to 100? Where you at right now,
dude? I mean, it's impossible for me to say, man. Like, so much of it, I think, hinges on like what we hear out of these reports, and like it that seems to switch week to week, right? So
wait, did you see his CFFC commentator? He was like, he might be going to another promotion, you know?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm at 30%.
Okay.
Sure that he's going to be there. That's where I'm at, and I'm probably going to stay there. We got 6 more weeks of this way, so
yeah. I feel like WWE, if they are entertaining the idea, they're going to play a bit more hard to get, because at this point they don't need Phil Brooks. Even for WrestleMania, they don't need him. So they can really take their time. They have their stories entirely plotted, from now until later. Do they want to risk like having CM Punk coming in and maybe, distracting the crowd, maybe having the crowd clamoring for him to get the title opportunity at WrestleMania versus somebody else? I mean, there's going to be great benefit, I think, for WWE to have him on, just from a star power standpoint. But there's also disruption, in more ways than one that might not make it worthwhile beyond just the allure of having him show up in Chicago.
If it is, I think that him versus Rollins, that's the match. Yeah, I think that's the match. Yeah.
But then whose spot are you taking away by having Punk versus Rollins?
He's definitely taking somebody's spot. And I think what you said, Gunther's spot.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, have your say, everybody. Leave a comment either in the YouTube channel or forum.postwrestling.com and follow at @ADThompson __, one of the hardest working men in all of professional wrestling journalism. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Neal, on the website. So shout out to all of you guys. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.